Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into the USA's emphatic 4-1 victory over Paraguay, and we are going to break it down with a complete tactical deconstruction. You know, if you just glanced at that final scoreline, you might think, oh, simple, walk in the park, right? But hey, modern football is rarely that simple. Today, we're dissecting exactly how the USA systematically dismantled their opponents on the world stage. We're talking formations, crucial moments, and the underlying data that made this massive result practically inevitable.
Here's how we're breaking it all down today. We'll start with a tactical overview, look at the first half turning points, analyze the second half goals and tactics, highlight some standout performers beyond Balogun, and wrap up with the World Cup group implications.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the tactical overview and how the US dictated the tempo.
Literally right from the opening whistle, the USA took absolute control. We're talking a massive 65% possession. They completely starved Paraguay of the ball. But look, as we all know, having the ball is one thing, right? Actually knowing what to do with it is a totally different story. The US didn't just hold possession, they outshot Paraguay 16-9, dictating exactly where and how this entire match was played.
Now, when we peek under the hood at the underlying data, the story gets even more compelling. The USA posted an expected goals of 1.42 compared to Paraguay's 0.54, and they created 4 big chances to Paraguay's 1. But honestly, the stat that absolutely jumps off the page, 77 final third entries compared to just 36 for the opposition. That is double. The USA wasn't just passing it around the back, they were actively and repeatedly hammering at Paraguay's defensive lines.
The pressure was just relentless. It was like the USA essentially pitched a tent and camped out in the opposition half for 90 minutes. They were constantly pushing high up the pitch, utilizing the flanks, and creating these numerical overloads on the wings that Paraguay, frankly, just couldn't handle.
Let's move on to Section 2, looking at the first half turning points, going from early chaos to complete control.
Things unraveled for Paraguay so fast. We're talking just the 7th minute here, when a brutal defensive mistake leads to a Damian Babadia own goal. Talk about a nightmare scenario. When you're the underdog trying to sit deep in a low block and frustrate a stronger team, an early own goal is a total game killer. That single moment completely flipped the script, forcing Paraguay to open up their shape, which ultimately paved the way for Folarin Balogun to double the lead in the 31st minute.
And we've got to talk about the tactical buildup for that second goal, because it was simple, but absolutely devastating. There was no chaotic scramble in the box, it was purely methodical. First, Christian Pulisic brilliantly exploits the space out wide and whips in a pinpoint cross. Then, Balogun drifts into this perfect pocket of space right in the center of the box and just slots a clinical right-footed finish right into the bottom right corner. Seriously, it's textbook attacking football.
Now, I know the attackers usually hog all the glory, but we have to take a second to highlight center back Chris Richards. Setting a flawless 83 for 83 passing record in a World Cup match, that is staggering. It's the absolute definition of commanding the game from the back. Every single time the US won the ball back, Richards made absolutely sure they kept it, completely nullifying Paraguay's pressing triggers and just smoothly launching the next attack.
Okay, moving to Section 3, second half goals and tactics, and how the US sealed the result.
So the real catalyst for the USA's third goal was Malik Tillman's incredible vision. Tillman threads this absolutely perfect key pass through the lines, setting up Balogun to just laser a left-footed shot right into the top left corner for his second goal of the match. Grabbing a goal right at this specific juncture is psychologically devastating for the opponent. It essentially ended Paraguay's hopes before the second half could even find its rhythm.
Now, Paraguay did manage to scrape back a consolation goal in the 73rd minute. Julio Enciso grabbed an assist to Mauricio after a set piece, which, to be fair, was a pretty rare defensive lapse from the US on the day. But any hint of a comeback was crushed when Giovanni Reyna slammed the door shut deep into stoppage time, converting a beautiful assist from Alex Freeman in the 98th minute to make it 4-1.
And the overarching tactical setup here resulted in really systematic, high-quality chances. Just look at the sheer volume of opportunities the USA generated right smack in the middle of the danger zone. They weren't out there settling for low-percentage pot shots from 30 yards out. No way. They systematically picked apart Paraguay's defensive block to get right into those prime scoring areas. That brings us to Section 4, standout performers beyond Balogun, taking a look at the supporting cast. So, a 9.0 match rating for Folarin Balogun is frankly exceptional, and he thoroughly deserved the player of the match for his lethal finishing. But check out how high the supporting playmakers rank right alongside him.
You know the old saying, a striker is only as good as the service he receives, right? Well, the U.S. midfield delivered an absolute masterclass in service today.
The dominance of that front line was just undeniable. With Giovanni Reyna pulling a 7.8 rating and Christian Pulisic right there with a 7.6, you've got three totally distinct points of attack, all operating at an elite level. Reyna and Pulisic were constant, unpredictable, creative threats all game long, stretching Paraguay's defense both horizontally and vertically.
So what's the big takeaway from this attacking display? It was those clinical final balls from the midfield that really served as the engine behind this victory. You had Pulisic's pinpoint early cross, Tillman's insane vision to slice through the lines for that third goal, and Reyna's relentless energy to secure that late finish. It all points to a dynamic, multifaceted offense that is just incredibly difficult to defend against.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, World Cup Group Implications, and looking ahead to what's next.
The picture in Group D is looking incredibly rosy for the Americans right now. Sitting at the top of the group with a commanding +3 goal difference instantly puts the USA right in the driver's seat for knockout stage qualification. In these tournaments, goal difference is so often the primary tiebreaker, so padding those stats with a 4-1 win, that is basically worth its weight in gold.
Here's the bottom line. Their 4-2-3-1 setup is firing on absolutely all cylinders. They showed us clinical finishing, total midfield control, and some seriously rock-solid distribution out of the back. They are riding a massive wave of momentum as they gear up to face Turkey and Australia in their upcoming fixtures.
Which brings me to the final thought I want to leave you with today. The blueprint for success is clearly laid out, but the big question is, can the USA maintain this ruthless attacking efficiency and tactical dominance when they go up against a much more rigid low block from tougher opponents in Group D? It's going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.